a hybrid, 5 drivers, 2 balanced amateur, nose balanced amateur, and 2 Sonian bone conduction drivers, and 1 dynamic driver. Priced at $299 US dollar, $0.99 US dollar, $300 US dollar. Let's talk about this BGVP DMA. Being a big size IEM, in order to house that 5 different drivers inside, just like many other big size IEM, I do feel that the comfort factor has been sacrificed a bit. For example, like this, I'm wearing it. I was able to wear it up to the mark of 1 hour, and closer to 2 hours, I'll be forced to just simply take it out because I can feel the inner side of the IEM itself touching a bit too strong for my liking. But at least one thing for sure, the seal factor is good. As I walk here in some, let's say, public noisy environment, I am not hearing much of ambient noise leaking in. So at least that's a huge plus there. This DMA is super easy to drive. Being a hybrid, which is pretty much as per expected, like most very well tuned and built hybrid, I was already getting quite good output from this Sony Xperia 1 Mark IV, my phone here, which is not so powerful, running on the 3.5mm single-ended termination, which, as you would notice here, can be easily swapped between 3.5mm to 4.4mm balance. And of course, in order to scale it, for better synergy, I get the best result out of this iBasso DX260 here, which offers the kind of sound which I would say as very dynamic and extremely resolving with the kind of balance which I really love. At the very least, I would say that try to run it with a capable dongle like this, which is Onyx Alpha X1. There's no denying that there's so many excellent sounding, excellently built IEMs in the market nowadays. We are spoiled for choice, and I'm kind of a bit surprised that this BGVP wasn't as widely popular as some other brands. From the moment that I received this DMA, almost like 1 month ago, right off the bat, right out of this box, I was already impressed. This thing sounds super, very resolving. Quality itself, the resolution, the imaging. Being a hybrid, I can guarantee you can expect first and foremost the layering, the separation, the articulation of details, macro and micro details, everything just simply very succinct. So in the simplest way to put it, this DMA, you can expect it to be highly technical in many ways, especially considering that it has bone conduction to impart the kind of mid-range which is immersive, I would say. It actually speaks to you. In general, the tuning itself is kind of a bit V sound curve rather than, the popular Harman, because I do feel that it offers a bit more of, let's say, mid, or should I say density, presence with the mid-range itself. I can feel the vocal, the instrument, any type of instrument, be it electronic or acoustic, or even, let's say, percussion, it does sound, commanding. The kind of vibe, the kind of edginess to it, especially when it comes to guitars, going all the way to the upper frequency, to the treble region, it offers the kind of treble decays, which is very well extended, offering a lots of micro detail, especially when used with this, something like this, highly resolving, especially in the upper mid-range, or most people would just simply call it Pina region. Then I would just say that this can appear a bit spicy if you are sensitive to treble, because it has that kind of energy, dynamic presentation, which I find very appealing which I can really enjoy. But also at the same time, I think some people who might find it kind of a bit too strong for their liking. Now, moving on to the lower frequency, I think this is perhaps the very best feature of this DMA. This DMA runs on dynamic driver for the lower frequency or for the bass, and the way it presents the mid bass, the sub bass itself, the presentation of the mid bass is punchy, commanding, but never overbearing. It is never overcooked in such a way that I would consider it offers the kind of speed, resolution, depth, and imaging, and the kind of decays all the way to the sub bass to the lowest extension of the lower frequency, I would just regard as simply fantastic. When it comes to soundstage, I would just admit that, being a hybrid, one of the weaknesses of a hybrid is that they tend to be very circular sounding, but not quite wide open as some of the magnetic planar or even dynamic driver that I use. But at least it is not outright narrow, especially if you attach it to something which is already capable like iBasso DX260, which I shown earlier, or even dongles like iBasso DC07 Pro. Okay, you're gonna get open, wide sounding, fairly wide sounding soundstage, but don't expect like that crazily wide sort of things. And when it comes to spatial presentation, you see here, I have been playing with this DMA for quite a bit, playing my favorite game here, which is Starfield. And the key thing is that being a hybrid, one of the main reasons that you want to use a hybrid is that they are always super excellent when it comes to projection of surround sound. So you should be able to track sound sources, enemy location, and stuff like that easily with this DMA. And on top of that, it also provides the kind of immersion and separation and layering which separate very clearly the soundtrack and the action itself and the ambient sound in such a way that is very, very enjoyable. Overall, all things considered, I was just gonna simply say that this BGVP DMA is a very solid IEM. And to do a bit of comparison, perhaps you have seen my review very recently with this Zigat J's Audio Estrella and Arret. Okay, and I would just say that this DMA competes head-on one-to-one with Estrella because in many ways both of them are hybrid, 5 drivers. That Estrella was 6 drivers and contain different type of drivers. So you can expect similar sort of resolution, imaging, capability to resolve macro and micro detail, and the kind of articulation of dynamic transient which is very dynamic and engaging. So it also boils down to some of the cons, which I would say, like I mentioned earlier, the treble and the upper mid-range can be kind of a bit spicy if you are sensitive to treble, which is also the same thing can be said for Estrella and some other highly energetic IEM, which I have tested. And of course, you also have to consider the fact that, if you have similar ear like me, it would be difficult to wear this DMA for over the period of, let's say, 1 hour, at max probably 1.5 hours, and at the 2 hours mark, let me just remind you again, it's kind of a bit, annoying for me, at least for my ear here, because probably it's not as shallow or not as deep as some other people. But for this IEM, if you can get over the cons, which I already mentioned, this is definitely one of the recommendations which I would highly recommend this year, 2024.